From the wide-open prairies to pixel-sized worlds, this is Indie Quest in the Prairies with Ally Cikor. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Indie Quest in the Prairies. Today, we're joined virtually by Brett from Calgary, who's one of the directors of the Calgary Game Developers Association and also a senior software developer and hobbyist game developer. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Absolutely. With a resume like that, I can see why you're super busy. So I'm really glad you could join us for this.
Yeah. It's always nice to do something like this and get to chat with other members of the community, get to know what you're up to and discuss what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I'd love to start there, actually. Tell us a little bit about what you do with Calgary Game Developers Association and how you got involved with the org.
For sure. It might take a bit. I'll try and be as succinct as possible, but I came across Calgary Game Devs back in 2017 and have been sort of lurking in the shadows for a while, doing game jams here and there. And about 2014, 2015, I started to get far more involved and joined the board a couple of years ago. We had our elections last night. This will be my third term as a director on the board. Traditionally, I've run all our game jams. I've helped organize major events like Alberta Game Series and our booth at GameCon Canada. I apply for grants and funding and put proposals forward and lots of different things. Yeah, so going into the next year, I think my focus is primarily going to be on community outreach, so doing stuff like this and focusing on grants and our website and tech stuff.
Right. Wow, you have your hands full.
Yes. Yeah, a little bit.
So when you first joined back in 2017, were you like a community member or how did that happen?
Back then, I think I just did a Google search. I don't even remember how I came across the Calgary Game Dev Association, but there was a Slack channel that they had, or a Slack, I don't even know what Slack calls them. They had Slack. I popped in there, would chime in now and then, but always had notifications turned off. And then one day they said, hey, we moved to Discord. Go over there. So I moved over to Discord and started chatting with Mike, went to the first monthly meetup that occurred after COVID and was pretty active after that.
Right. That's funny. That's such a transition from like lurker on the Slack who probably kind of forgot it was there to a director.
Yeah, I was going through a decent amount of life change at the time. I was transitioning from a career as a primary care paramedic into university life. I went back to school at that time to do a degree in computer information systems and really just wanted to do what I actually wanted to do, which was program and start making games and stuff like that.
Right. Well, could you tell us a little bit about that too? Like, I know in your day job as a software developer, you're not technically in the game space, but kind of in an adjacent industry, right?
Yeah. So where I work now, we do digital marketing, and the specific client I work with is an automotive client. It's a lot of front-end development, a little bit of GraphQL, which isn't quite back-end, but a little bit of that. And previous to this, I worked actually at a legal tech startup as a full-stack developer, so front-end, back-end.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In the marketing side, it's not quite games, but it's still creative. It's a creative industry with lots of collaboration between myself and designers. So that does transfer over to games quite a bit. And then on the side, I just like making games. I've been playing games since I was 2 on NES. So they're fun. They're a great way of expressing different emotions, whether that be humor or horror or whatever, right?
Right.
So it's just a fun way to put something out there for others to experience.
Yeah. Well, what are you working on, if I can ask, if it's not a secret?
Work stuff or hobby stuff?
Hobby stuff.
Hobby stuff.
Yeah.
I'm working on a game called Jelly Nook currently. It's a cozy slime crafting game. You put some ingredients together, out pops a slime or a jelly. It's got a little bit of a story to it, and we're actually going to be implementing a photography mode where you can set up backdrops and put accessories on the jellies, take pictures of them to share. But it's very simple game, just something to get out there. It'll be the first commercial release before I get back to another project of mine.
Wow. And you're solo debbing this?
No, I'm actually working with Grizzly Moose Studios. It's another local development team. We paired up, and that the original goal was to try and create the entire game during Global Game Jam. And we got pretty far, but decided that there were some necessary changes to make. And because we're all busy, it's then gone from a 1 weekend project to a 1 year project, just working an hour here and there.
Wow. It's funny how that happens, though. Like, it's why I love game jams and events. And maybe this is a good segue into that. But there's so many people in this field, myself included, who like got their start at a game jam, whether it's somebody they met, whether it's a project that they picked up that they wanted to like continue with this group of people. Like your weekend game jam project turned into a year-long thing. And I'm curious if you, being a part of the community especially, like you must see that a lot. Yeah.
In some situations. So Bow Valley College actually puts their students through our game jams. So it's part of their curriculum to actually come in and do one, just to experience what it's like to work on a game from start to finish, do some rapid prototyping, and then showcase the games at the end. Not everybody has an opportunity to pitch their game. And so at the end of our game jams, everybody does that. And it's an excellent learning opportunity and great experience. As far as games that continue on after the game jam, it's hit or miss, because game jams are about experimentation. They're about learning something new or networking. They're not necessarily 100% about the game, at least not for us. So there can be some pretty wacky games out there that don't get finished, and then others have higher polish, and they would make excellent games. And it's just a matter of persuading the individuals to continue on.
Right. And it's so much fun to work with students, right? They have that energy. They don't know what they don't know. They're not like afraid or intimidated. It's funny, the most hesitation that I feel from people when it comes to attending game jams is actually from people who work in the industry, like professionally, because there's this like nervousness, this imposter syndrome where students are like, I don't know what I'm doing, but here I am, let's make something. And it's just so, I don't know, contagious, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit of that. I think a lot of the time with people who work in industry, they're a little tired of working on games at the end of the day in some cases. And so to then dedicate an entire weekend to it again is a little much. But there are some of us who are crazy and just like to do that. So that's what we do. And then students, it's kind of both. Sometimes they're nervous because it's their first time doing a game jam or a hackathon of any sort, and they're not sure what to expect, and they're quite nervous coming in. But we do an excellent job as a community to welcome newcomers. In our most recent game jam, about 30% of participants were brand new, had never done a game jam before. And the winning team, I believe 50% of their team actually had a first timer on their team.
Wow.
Yeah. And just as a caveat, like game jams aren't about winning. We throw in prizes because it's fun for the people who come to it. But it's all about just self. We're going to cut that because I'm blanking on the term. It's all about growing your own personal skills and networking and having fun.
Yeah, well, and CGDA does such a good job in general. I feel like Alberta really in welcoming people at every level. It doesn't have this kind of exclusive flavor of the in club and the out club. It's really wholesome and welcoming. And I'm curious because you said like we actively try to do that to make sure people feel included. What kind of things are you doing to make sure people feel that way and come and engage?
So we used to put up a whiteboard and have people sign up if they were looking for a team. I haven't attended the last few game jams. I've organized, but not been able to participate. So I'm not sure if we're continuing to do that, but we have certain community members who go around and put in the extra effort to get to know anybody they don't recognize and make sure that they end up on a team if they want to have a team that they are socialized with, and really feel welcome in that group, and take away a bit of the scary aspect of stepping into a room of 40 people who know each other.
Yeah. Well, and that's so huge. I mean, it's already an intimidating kind of thing, right? Not only the event, but like entering the industry as a whole, I feel like has started to get this mythos isn't the word, but it just seems so intimidating, and there's so many barriers in the way, and there are, granted, but I'm glad for folks like you guys, CGDA, you go out of your way to at least help them get over the first step. Like, you're a part of this community, at least, right?
Yeah, for sure. And even if game jams are too intimidating, we run Indie Friday every week, which is far lower stakes. It's just come in, have a co-working session with your peers, and if you want to chat and get to know everyone, then you can. And if not, if you want to just come in, plunk down your laptop and work away, then that's entirely okay as well. It's just a way to enter into what CGDA does and have very low stakes in the process.
Right. And you guys have like a ton of different events, right? I know there's a lot, but can you give us a bit of a list of the types of things you do and the intended like impact on the community?
Yeah, we actually have over 100 events every year if you count everything. It ranges from weekly events, monthly events, game jams are every 3 or 4 months, to sporadic events. We have community driven ones that are like an audio meetup that Dylan runs for all those composers and musicians out there working on games. And then we have things like narrative. I forget what it's called. Okay. So we have audio meetup that Dylan runs for all those composers and musicians working on games. We also have engine specific meetups, like an Unreal meetup run by Hamish. We have board game night. We have diversity in gaming meetups run by Tanya. We have a narrative writing meetup that just kicked off. So lots of different things for everybody who does different things in the craft.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny, you've like gone from just like everybody, if you're vaguely interested or involved in games, come to a meetup, to now you almost have to have like ones for each type of group. Like, you guys have really grown as an org. I know, I'm not even sure. Do you know how many members roughly you have in your community?
Last I heard, we were approaching 2,000 on Discord,
Wow.
and about 88 registered members. Yeah.
Wow. And I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that. It's been a bit of a theme on a lot of our episodes where there's this feeling that, like, us in the sphere, we know this is big and growing, and there are a lot of us working at different levels or engaging with the community at different levels, but like externally, people don't realize there's like 2,000 people in your Discord, 100 events a year. That's a pretty big thing bubbling under the surface of the province.
It is. And what's interesting too is there's a whole bunch of shadow game devs in the city. There's a lot of employees that were hired remotely during COVID for companies like EA that are in and around the city, but they don't have time to come out to the events. And some of them have intentionally sought out the events because they don't have that office coworker feeling. And so they want to get together with other game devs after their day is done. So a lot of them will come out to our monthly meetups. And I think the other thing to note is with those other events, a lot of them are run by community members, not by directors. We'll help them where needed with marketing, with showing them how to run events, that sort of thing. But they just pick up and do it. And that's something really special.
Right. Yeah, well, and I kind of wanted to touch on what it takes to run and grow an organization like this, because you guys are pretty big. You're at the point now where community members are running their own things even. And I know you're quite involved with sourcing funding, right? Doing the website and promotion and a lot of the things that people don't get to see much. And I'm curious if you could give us a bit of a window into like, what is it like trying to run a org from that lens?
Well, given that I've only been here for 2.5 years-ish, 2 years-ish so far, I can't speak to all of it, but I will say it takes a lot of consistency. Our monthly meetups have been going, I don't even know how long, maybe since the start, so 10 years. Our Indie Friday has been running consistently since COVID, and prior to COVID, it also ran. It was started up by our previous director, Radu. So making sure that you're consistent in your events and your communications and all of that, and making sure that there's somewhere that people can go is super important. And then there's all the not so glamorous stuff with running an organization, like filing your taxes and filing your annual general return or annual corporate return, sorry. Getting a website up, putting in policies, reviewing the Societies Act, all of that sort of stuff. And at the end of all that, you still need funding, as you said. So seeking out sponsors, seeking out donors, finding grants and writing them, that takes a lot of time. I wrote 3 grants this year, and I don't even know how many hours I sunk into that. So
you don't want to even think about it, I'm sure.
No, I'm already thinking about the grants next year I have to write.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because like I think at some point, if you want to get to the scale that you guys are at and starting to even grow beyond that, it's just part of the reality, right? Like it's one thing to get 20 people to show up once a month for a meetup, but to really grow the industry in this province, I'm curious, and I'm making a crystal ball a little bit, but like, where do you see CGDA sitting in that, in trying to like take Alberta from this cauldron of bubbling excitement, and we do have 70 plus studios here and all of this, to whatever the next step is?
I think it's just gonna take, well, I don't want to speculate on the initiatives that we have in the process. But we have some bigger events here, like Alberta Game Series, that are continuing to attract people into the province. We're working on some other major events this year. I can't mention anything about those yet, but hopefully that brings in some attention as well. And the number one thing is we need games. We need games to be made. So it's great having these game jams, and we get, I don't know, anywhere from 15 to 30 games made each time. But we need those to continue on and be published. And the more games that we publish, that's like throwing 100 darts at a dartboard. One's going to hit a bullseye and bring in more attention. A great example of a game recently that did well was Get to Work by Isto. That game, I think, took them under a year, or just about a year, and it has done quite well. It's set them up for the next few years of game development. We need to continue stuff like that, taking chances and putting things out there, and eventually we'll have big hits that are just well known, and that helps the province.
Right. And so when it comes to like helping studios make those games, ship those games, you touched a little bit on like your background is in marketing and things like that. I kind of want to pivot to the importance of that, I guess, in indies. And do you have a special perspective on it?
I'm probably not the best to talk about this. I do work in marketing, but I'm not the marketer. I just build the stuff that the designers give me. But like there is a change in how games are marketed, and that change happens all the time. Right now, the big thing is working with streamers and content
Mhm.
creators, but there's also that's one aspect of it. That's what Isto did. But then game developers like Jonas Tyroller don't do that. They rely on making a good game and hoping it markets itself. And with Thronefall, that's what happened.
Mhm.
Um, but that's not always the case. There's tons of games that just don't hit the mark and don't mesh with the audience, and so that's why you just got to keep making smaller games and get them out there and see what is landing and build upon that.
Right. Yeah. There's that stat I keep seeing every year. The number goes up and up, but it's something like 12,000 games a year release on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're expecting about 12, 13,000 this year. And it's less about just making a game and it's more about discoverability. Like you want you want a good game, obviously. Like marketing a bad game, it's still a bad game. People aren't going to buy it, but just getting through the noise seems to be a big challenge for a lot of indies. And even though we're working in Alberta, we're still competing on this global scale, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think maybe my perspective is limited on that, but there are programs out there that are competitive to get into in some cases, but they're there to help developers. Bow
Mm.
Valley's Indie Ignition program, for example, I took part in that, and they had a lot of valuable talks from very accomplished speakers that help you learn the ropes and start your games business. Then you move on, and there's programs like The Kiln, which is just starting up with Jason De La Roca and Calgary Economic Development, um, where they're taking studios that are a little bit more established, but not quite there, and helping push them across the line and perhaps find publishers.
Right.
So taking advantage of those programs, going through programs like Bow Valley College's game development and game design program, they do give you a helping hand along the way, and the networking that comes with that as well points you in the direction of people who can help.
Right. And so, what do you think is the biggest hurdle right now for Alberta indies in terms of like we've got the people, we're starting to get them into the same room, sparks are starting to fly, stuff's starting to get worked on. What's the hurdle between that and having a capital I industry, right? Like people always look at Montreal and Vancouver and what gets us more in that trajectory, I guess.
Everybody's going to tell you funding.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
um, Funding helps. If you have time to dedicate to game development, then you have a greater chance of succeeding, right?
Mhm.
For me personally, Jelly Nook has been taking a year because I can only work on it an hour or two a week. So if I had funding to work on a game full time, I'd have a better chance. And I think a lot of studios are in that same belt, but it's also about connections and connections to publishers or marketing agencies in the games industry who can get more eyes on your game. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, the more you can showcase, the better. There's GameCon Canada, which is a big help for getting your game in front of over 30,000 people, which is great.
Mhm.
A lot of small games don't even get that. So, uh, gotta give a shout out to the people who are helping.
Right. Well, and so I'm a bootstrapper myself. I have an indie studio on the side, and I totally feel you when you say like, "Well, I've only got a few hours a week to dedicate to that," and you're a dad too. And I wonder if you could give us a little bit of a glimpse into the life of the bootstrapping indie, because I think there's oftentimes it's seen as this like really glamorous pursuit, right? Be an indie side hustle, but it's tough. There are some challenges there too. It's wonderful, but there are some challenges, and I just want to kind of get your perspective on doing that over the course of the time that you have.
Yeah, certainly. The more you can do to extend your runway is the better. When
Mm.
you're younger, and if you're able to live at home with your parents, then obviously you have a better shot. You're not paying rent. You may not be paying groceries. You have a greater ability to take on risk. As you get older, as you take on a mortgage, maybe as you have kids, that risk taking ability goes down and it becomes a lot harder. So I would say setting yourself up in a situation where you have some financial stability is very important. And there are additional ways that some people extend their runway, whether that be through work for hire, which can be tricky to get as a new studio, but work for hire, streaming or YouTube videos, creating educational content that can trickle in some funds. And then working at a coffee shop part-time as well, like I work multiple jobs. I'm sure there's lots of other developers who do too.
Right. Yeah. I've had conversations around funding, right? And it's like, well, what do you need funding for? Like equipment? Is that the cost? And no, it's just the time. It's just buying yourself time to focus. Games are really complicated. They're time consuming. Even really small games a game jam game can turn into a year-long project, right?
Yeah. And it's not cheap to buy groceries every month. So
getting harder and harder. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I know one developer, they ran their own indie studio out in Quebec for, I don't even know how long, since 2014, I think. Right. But they made sure that their rent was as low as possible so that they could take their savings and extend it for as long as possible.
Right.
I think they released 5 or 6 games before moving on to work for hire, but they did pretty good. And I think a lot of people just need to be cognizant of the fact that it takes time to make games and you need the runway to take that time.
Yeah, well, and time to learn it, not just learn your craft, but also learn how to market, how to ship, how to build the network. Like 4 to 5 games is great. That's a really great opportunity, but most people don't hit on their first or second or third or sometimes 5th game. So you kind of need to like keep doing it, keep building, get that experience, right?
Yeah, actually, I think most developers don't release a second game. I think that's the stat. So if you are a developer who's released 2 commercial games, congrats! Like you're ahead of most. Yeah.
Do you find in CGDA most people are like before that first game, or are they kind of like already shipping some even smaller projects?
It really depends on who you look at. Those who come to our Indie Friday are primarily students and those who are pursuing their first commercial projects. We do have a few veterans in there that pop in, but most of the time, the veterans who are shipping games don't necessarily have time to come into Indie Friday or come into those sorts of events. They'll show up at our monthly meetup most often, but otherwise they're busy working on their projects.
Yeah, it's the catch-22, right? Like you want those people in the community so they can share their experience and become a connection, but like they're busy, right? Busy in a good way.
Yeah. And I think it's not too much to say that moving forward, we'll be focusing on creating content that helps them out as well, bringing in more advanced speakers, having mentorship talks, that sort of thing for those who are intermediate and getting to that self-sustaining stage. But then also bringing back those self-sustaining studios and members of those studios to do talks for the juniors and for those just starting out.
Right. That's awesome. I really do find that in Alberta, that's a big advantage we have is a lot of our developers, even the successful ones who are quite busy, find ways to contribute back into the community, even if it's just taking interns or going to events and sharing their knowledge and things like that. I'm curious if you get that sense that like, we're a community that really wants to help the community grow, because that's certainly what I've been seeing.
Yeah, 100%. And I could name a whole bunch of individuals in our community who've always been helpful and willing to step in when needed. I won't get into the list, but they are out there and super appreciative of the time that they put in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and pivoting a little bit, because I know you do a lot of these events and things like that. Do you have a favorite event? Like one that you enjoy running the most, you think provides the most value, like whatever your metric is?
I just like running events in general. Game jams are super fun, but with a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old, it's a little tricky to get out to them now. So I'm moving on from those and focused on primarily the major events like Alberta Game Series.
Right. So can you explain a little bit what Alberta Game Series is?
Yeah, it's sort of like a miniature GDC, if you're familiar with GDC. It's a 2-day event that features speakers from industry in different capacities, whether that be marketing, business development, or actually crafting your game. So yeah, we have speakers over 2 days. We have a games showcase. In the last year, we had a pitch competition. We have different workshops throughout the year that are associated to AGS, and it's all about growing the industry, bringing in more perspectives and helping developers learn different things to hone their craft.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's fun. I've been to a few myself, and they often feel like a little bit of a celebration too of where we're at, where we've come, where we're going. There's generally a positive energy, even at the time we're recording this in a time of industry turmoil, let's say. There's still this like positivity around the community, and it's always nice to, especially being in Lethbridge, it's a way for the hubs of the province to connect and celebrate that and share their successes. And yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, and it's a nice way to join the other organizations in the province, whether that be Game Camp Edmonton or Lethbridge Game Developers Guild. Working together is nice, and yeah, celebrating what we can do. There's enough focus on the doom and gloom, so let's focus on helping each other out.
Exactly. You have any fun stories during your time running the CGDA?
I could share a fun story about my very first game jam.
Okay.
If you want.
Yeah.
I think it was the last game jam that we had before COVID, a global game jam, I believe. My first game jam ever, went in, and I joined a team, didn't know the fellas. They had driven down from Edmonton, made some 2D NES style game with them. But then on the last day, we decided we were going to see who wanted pizza. And I had a 50% discount as a student at the local pizza shop. So we went around. Popular. Pardon?
So you were popular?
A little bit. But yeah, so we went around, collected everybody's cash and their order, and we ended up ordering 100 pizzas. And so we went over to this pizza shop. I drove over in my little Cobalt, and it filled my entire back seat with 100 pizzas to bring back to the game jam. And everybody just ate pizza on the last night.
That is amazing. And you went through all of the pizzas?
We went through all of the pizzas. They're individuals, so about 10 inches or 8 inches, about 100 of them, one for everybody.
Oh my goodness. What did the pizza place say when you put in that order? Were they like shocked?
It was online, so
what I wouldn't give to see that person's face.
Yeah. They looked a little exhausted at the end, and they were cheering once they got through the last pizza, and we picked it all up.
Oh my God, that's amazing. We have a little cardboard arcade thing that all of our guests draw on. And Danielle, our producer, wants me to ask what you would like us to draw on it, but I'm tempted to say we should draw the little Cobalt with all the pizzas.
I can send you a picture of it, probably.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, I think I still have a picture of all the pizzas in the back seat, so.
I would love to see that, yes.
Yeah.
Cool, okay. That was a good story. Anything else you want to chat about or add? Promos? You want to give a shout out to any events you got?
Shout outs. Well, we have Global Game Jam coming up again at the end of January. And we have new directors who will be running it. So it's their first game jam. We're trying some new things. I'm not sure if you guys are participating, but I'm sure it'll be a blast.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I know we have Alberta Game Jam, which is always cool because like Alberta just lights up. And then in the winter, we all do Global Game Jam. So it's another opportunity for not only the whole province, but the whole world then to be working on games for a weekend. So
yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to Arcade Jam again. That's our third game jam. It's all about making arcade games. They're the lowest barrier to entry game. Easiest to ship if anybody decides to move on. And yeah, we put all the games on our arcades after.
that's very cool. Where are the arcades if someone wanted to go play?
We have one upstairs at Platform Calgary, and the other two are tucked away. One is going to stick with us for testing and iterating on the launcher and on the games. And the other one, I believe, is going to go to a library, but I'm not sure yet. We haven't confirmed.
Cool. Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, not a problem at all.
I'm drawing it? Oh, I'm sorry. Not this time, it's not in 3D. Except you can't tell that's pizza, so I'm gonna write it.